And then you're going to stop, Chris, and then I'll introduce after a minute after they are in.
Sure, we'll let some people chime in here or get going, get settled in.
Okay, so we are recording. Okay. Oh yeah, I gotta hit participate. Oh, we have 14 participants, 15. Yep, they are coming in. I don't hear his music though.
But they can hear us. Do we want to start? It's 11:30.
Yeah, are we ready to start?
Yeah, we can, you bet. Let me stop share here. I didn't have the music going because it switched to commercials.
Oh.
I didn't want people to come in and listen to a bunch of advertisements. I think it was a hot water heater, although those are important.
Those are. All right, hello everyone, and welcome to part 2 of our 5-part Informed Families Fall Webinar Series. I'm Judy Zabel, health educator at the La Crosse County Health Department and member of LCPN, La Crosse County Prevention Network. I'll be your host today. LCPN's mission is to mobilize La Crosse County to build healthy youth, young adults, and families through education, collaboration, and advocacy to prevent alcohol, tobacco, and other drug misuse. I want to remind you that there are 3 other webinars in the fall series. Please share with family, friends, and colleagues. You can register at lacrossecpn.org. I have just a few logistics to share to get us started, and then I will introduce Chris in just a moment. All of our Informed Families webinars will be recorded and can be located at the La Crosse County Prevention Network Facebook and YouTube sites. We are streaming on Facebook Live right now, so anybody who was not able to join in Zoom due to capacity can jump over to our La Crosse County Prevention Network Facebook Live page and join that live stream, and you will see the exact same content. Handouts for today's presentation will be emailed out just shortly to the email provided in the Zoom registration page. The email comes from Judy Zabel, so please look for that. For Facebook participants, please email me at jzabel@lacrossecounty.org and I will share them after the presentation. If you have questions for our presenter and are watching on Zoom, please put them in the box marked Q&A. That way our team can keep track of all the questions and they can be answered at the end of the presentation. We also have a team standing by on the La Crosse County Prevention Facebook page, and any questions you may have can be picked in the Facebook comments section, and our team will be sure to get them to us. And now I'd like to introduce Chris, our speaker for today. Chris is a parenting professor. He's a husband, a father, an educator. Don't ask him what he teaches because he always responds people. Chris has had the fortune of graduating twice from the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse, receiving a BS in Health and Physical Education and an MS in PE, with an adventure education emphasis. Here, he had countless opportunities to work with great educators from all over the state. Chris moved to the West Coast in 1999 and spent 2 years teaching and coaching young people. It was in Portland, Oregon, where he received his experience working with a very diverse population of students. It was here he learned about what attracts kids into the gang lifestyle. This is where he realized the lifetime impact that can be had with students. The impact is a two-way street. Chris recently stepped away from the classroom and home in Wisconsin to attain his administrative license from the Winona State University in Minnesota and to spend time raising his 2 daughters. He's been blessed with a number of opportunities to work with parents, students, and educators all around the state, leading workshops on refusal skills, classroom management, and discipline. and anti-bullying programs. He's had the fortune to become a loving and logic parent. Chris and his wife feel blessed to raise their children with these strategies. He has had the opportunity to meet thousands of educators while presenting at conferences, including Wisconsin Education Association Council, Wisconsin Association of Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance, Building the Heart of Successful Schools, Wisconsin School Counselors Association, Minnesota School Counselors Association.
Hey, Judy,
Yeah.
time out. I didn't know you're going to read everything.
So we can cut that part, huh,
We're
Chris?
good. We're good. They just want to hear about how to not argue with kids anymore. So I don't, was there anything else? They don't want to hear all that. I know I don't.
I'm good with that. We had talked about that, but I think it's important to know he's well-versed and comes well recommended. And as you can tell, Chris is just a good guy and he's easy to talk to. So I hope that you will ask your questions and make this as interactive as possible, because that's what Chris would like.
I think if you look on my Facebook page, it says I'm just a dad trying to do my best. And I just keep getting gifts like this. So thank you, Judy, and thank you, La Crosse County and surrounding areas. I haven't been in front of people very often. Well, do we call this in front of people? I guess virtually. It's a little interesting because I can't see anyone. So I'm just going to assume that you're dressed nicely and you're laughing when you're supposed to at my silly jokes. So the interaction piece is going to be interesting. But, you know that saying, if you don't use it, you lose it. Well, I thought I better practice because I was supposed to have a busy spring and a really busy summer, and I actually bought a work car so I could get better mileage than my rusty and trusty Ford farm truck, and then everything happened. So that didn't happen, and so I just turned inwards to family, and that's a blessing as well. And our garden's been crazy, and food and sharing and doing the best we can while still keeping safe during this pandemic and an unusual time for sure. But if you don't use it, you lose it. So I thought a couple of weeks ago, I looked at the calendar. I'm like, holy cats, it's almost the end of September. I'm going to have to start talking. And I recorded it. Now, you see, I shaved today and I put on a clean shirt. That wasn't always the case. I recorded it. This was just a couple weeks ago. Let's take a look here.
So the most important thing you gotta remember is, some people were, they were doing some stuff, and then other people were like, hey, don't do that stuff, and then other people were like, hey, yeah, they should do, that stuff. It's good that they're doing that stuff, and then the other people were like, I don't think they should be doing that stuff, and then they're doing, so things are like what I'm trying to say is that in conclusion, I have no idea.
I just love that. In conclusion, I have no idea. And I bet you you've had a situation with your own kids, or if I have some teachers on board with your students, and you see the misbehavior and you're just like, oh my goodness, what do I do? That's not in the book. Well, we'll learn some things today on, I call this how to make parenting a breeze. That's not true. It's catchy, but it's probably not true. But we'll learn some strategies and some techniques. So let's just get after it here if you're cool with that. Please, if you have a question, we're going to have some Q&A at the end. I believe we have some time set aside for that. But if you have any really on your heart questions, bring them up. We'll hit pause, not a big deal. We'll turn you in so I can hear your voice, or we'll read it off. and we'll just answer those questions. I will say in the next couple of slides, we are going to get to the handout. So if you find that email, just pull it up. If you can print it, great. If not, just pull it up, and especially the handout that says turn your words to gold, because I'm going to have you read some of that stuff, okay? So let's take a look just generally, what is Love and Logic, right? And you know, if I ask you how many people have heard of it, a lot of your hands are going to go up. It's a philosophy and a set of principles, right? A set of principles is different than a system. It allows adults to be happier in their interactions with kids. I think we should just circle the word happier there, because you know, there's a lot of stress right now, and sometimes that smile seems more like a grimace from time to time. And so we're going to learn some stuff today and how to just be happier with kids. And at the end, I'm going to talk about the full parenting, the Love and Logic Way class. Hopefully I get to it. So I always forget to, but if you are interested in learning a lot more about this, just reach out to me and I'll send you some stuff. But I do have a class starting Sunday. So we have a large group from people from all over the nation. So it'll be kind of a fun time to really dive in and learn about these principles. Love allows kids to grow through their mistakes. I haven't heard it much lately, but you know, stereotypically I hear a lot of dads, oh, you know, I was raised differently and look at me, I just turned out fine. And absolutely. And we talk about that. Love doesn't necessarily always mean warm, touchy, fuzzy, right? For example, I had my youngest child, you know, long story short, she forgot her lunch on the very last day of school. They're going to go to a picnic thing, end of school celebration. And I watched her leave her lunch by the garage. You know how much love it takes to allow that child to make the mistake when the costs are small, right? That was first grade. That kid hasn't forgotten a lunch ever since. Right? It took so much love and patience and biting my tongue and thoughts and prayers and just be like, oh, because I knew for our family that mistake, even though it was so gut wrenching at the time, was a mistake that wasn't important enough to let that happen. And actually, it turned out the school called me, and Jane, the lady at the front, she goes, "You know where your kid is?" I'm like, school, I hope. And she's like, "She's down in the lunchroom with Rose, the lunch lady, making a lunch, trying to figure out how to pay her back for her time." And I thought, well, that's pretty cool. Yeah, so she figured it out. She solved her own problem, and kids can do that when we guide them. The logic part allows children to live with the consequences of their choices. Consequences, a word that we use a lot, logical consequences. See, Love and Logic doesn't come from a punishment-based perspective. It's not aha, I caught you, you little stinker, gonna make your life miserable, and then cross my fingers and hope that what? Yeah, that they change or that they grow or get better, or at least don't do that again. Punishment works for a few kids, but it's exhausting at the end of the day. We'll talk about that a little bit as we go on. So Love and Logic, that's kind of the big 3 bullets. Everything will come back to that. All right, let's keep going. Here's what I hope to do today. A very basic intro, a broad brushstroke about philosophy. I know I personally can get into the reasons and the brain research and the philosophy, and we could do a full day workshop just on that. But if I was on the other side, I'm like, all right, give me enough to give me some background information, but I want skills today. I want to stop the power struggles at home. I want to yell less or never. I want to not argue with kids. I don't want to remind or beg or lecture. So we'll touch on those topics very briefly. We'll tell some stories and laugh. And I don't know, hopefully you're laughing right now. I know that guy at the beginning, he's just hilarious to me. That's going to be me in about 20 years, 25 years, I think. We'll look at 9 strategies or 10 probably that you can utilize when you return home. I understand that we're not going to dive deep into any one of these, but hopefully we plant some seeds and you're like, hey, I want to learn more about choice theory or giving choices to kids, or I want to teach kids I want to guide kids to solve and own their own problems instead of me taking care of all the problems. So and again, reach out to me and I can get you a ton of more information on that as we move through. And you're going to watch me struggle. I got to watch the clock here. I think I only have an hour and then some Q&A. So you're going to watch me struggle to get through all of this, and we're just going to have some fun along the way. All right. I mentioned that handout. Take a second, find it on your screen. If you don't have it, print it out. And it's this concept. The handout is called Turn Your Words to Gold. I call it garbage to gold just because it's catchy and it helps me remember. But this idea that language shapes reality, right? I could look out today and I could say, well, I could say today is Wednesday. And is that true? Right. And I could say it's midday on Wednesday. Is that true? Yeah, I'm shaping the reality a little different with the language. I could say it's a windy, blustery day in God's country in the Seven Rivers region of Wisconsin. Is that true? Yeah, it was raining earlier. I got a little small window down here, but we can use language to shape reality that makes our life easier or makes it difficult. And I ask you, which one do you want? So let's look at that handout. And you know, I didn't print out a copy for myself. I should know it pretty good by now, but there's 2 pages to that, and there's a bunch of examples. And what I'd like to do while I catch my breath is just allow you to read those, give you 90 seconds, pick 1 or 2. And Judy or Nikki, I would love to just talk with someone and ask them which one that they liked, which one kind of piqued their interest, and maybe we could just have a quick dialogue. Is that cool? Y'all there still? Are you sleeping? So I'll give you 90 seconds, and then Judy and Nikki and I will talk just a little bit.
Okay. Oh, headphones. Okay.
Caught you off guard, Judy.
Well, I had to unmute myself.
So maybe someone would just say, help me interact with one that they really, really liked. So how would they let you know that? Can they raise their
Put
hand?
it in the chat line,
They
in
can
the
put it
chat,
in the chat.
or the Q&A.
Chat
Do a
or
Q&A.
either.
A lot of statements on there, a lot of things that I bet you you're nodding your head like, oh yeah, I remember being raised with that, or oh, I just said that yesterday.
So if anybody wants to respond to one of the handouts or the comments on that.
Yep,
Like-
all I need is for them to just kind of read one out loud. Are you able, this is good for us to practice how to turn them into a panelist.
Yep, they can also put it in the chat and we can unmute them.
Yep,
Or
if
even
you can
chat.
put it in the chat, then we can unmute you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Who has the courage? There are people listening, is that right?
There are.
Oh yeah. Give it a few more seconds, and if people aren't prepared for that, I get it. Oh, I see a chat.
Rita.
It's like winning the lottery.
Is that Rita?
Yep, so I will unmute her.
Rita, you do win something. You win a book. I'll give you a choice. Email me or Facebook me, and I'll give you a choice of some materials that you could choose.
Well, Chrissy DeLong, welcome, Chrissy.
Yay, thanks, Chrissy. Rita, are you there?
I am.
Awesome, Rita. Thank you so much for having the courage to just step up and help us out here. So if you've ever been to any of my other stuff, there's a huge interactive component to this, and just having fun and relaxing and having some laughs about kids. And when I do it as a webinar, it's a little tough. So thank you for that. Now you looked at that handout. Which one did you like?
Which one didn't I?
I was going to say, did you kind of highlight all of them? Give me the old language, or what we call the unenforceable language, and then give me the enforceable statement.
So considering I'm working at home and my kids are virtual schooling, the one that I tend to use way too much is, please be quiet, I can't I can't listen to your brother when you're both talking at the same time.
Right? And that sounds, I mean, you open up the sentence with the word please. What's wrong with that? But usually, how's your tone with that?
Oh, not really pleasant.
All the time. And everyone's nodding, and you're helping me teach today. So thank you for that. And we can't enforce that. We just truly cannot enforce be quiet. And there's a lot of things we can't enforce, like Rita, eat your peas. You know, wouldn't it be great if you could just tell a kid, or go to sleep? You know, wouldn't that be awesome if you could be like, Johnny, eat your peas. Oh, is that what I'm doing? I didn't. Thank you, mother. Or turn the lights out, go to sleep. Oh, is that why I'm in the room by myself, Father? I'm so glad you had. Or what are the other things? In the potty. Go. Will you just poop? Wouldn't that be great? And they're like, oh, that's why I'm sitting on this cold thing. But when we give directives like that, right, we kind of move kids from prefrontal cortex decision-making mode to more brainstem mode. You know, a neurotypical well-behaved child will say, yes, Father, I will eat my peas. Thank you. And some kids will say, not going to do it, or even worse. So how do we make our words enforceable? Rita, so please be quiet. Sounds nice, but we can't enforce that. What does Love and Logic recommend?
I'll be glad to listen to you as soon as your brother has finished talking to me.
Yeah, I even make it simpler with younger kids. I listen to one kid at a time. You're first. I listen to one kid at a time. You're second. Right? So with little kids, we can really simplify the language. But now that's enforceable. Right, that's enforceable, and there's some other techniques that go along with that. But is anyone else thanks so much, Rita, for doing that. Appreciate that.
Yes.
Was there anyone else that chimed in? I see a few more chats. Chrissy DeLong, I'll start again as soon as I know you are with me. I use that with adults a lot. If you watch, this is not a political rant, I promise, but if you watched the debate last night, or what was meant to be a debate, there were times when my wife and I looked at each other and we both mouthed the words, I'll continue when everyone is acting sweet. And I don't know, maybe we need Jim Fay or Dr. Charles Fay to moderate the next one. But any other people chiming in there, guys, ladies? Good to go? All right, let's keep moving then. Language shaping reality, language and tone shaping reality. And Rita helped me remember that word as well. So let's.
Chris, there's one comment here about stop arguing with me.
Oh, yeah. Where's that at? Oh, will you stop arguing with me? I worked with a mom yesterday in my driveway. She signed up for a class. She has 4 kids that are 6 and under. So we have a moment of silence for her. Yeah. And she's a teacher, but now is a stay-at-home mom, and has a little side hustle job that she's doing, selling something, but she was stressed out. And I know her pretty well, but she came in to the driveway to pick up the workbook for the class that starts Sunday. And I said, how are things going? She's like, Chris, I just yelled at my kids a mile down the road. Will you stop yelling? And she got the fact that she's modeling yelling while asking kids to stop yelling. And that's irony in kids' brains. And those aren't relationship builders. We'll talk about that more as we go on. But stop arguing with me, right? So we can change that language to say something like, well, in the classroom, I used to say this, I argue at lunch and after school, which one would work best for you? Or I might even say, oh, sweetie, notice the little empathy phrase there. Oh, sweetie, I love you too much to argue. I love you too much to argue, right? And then we can just keep repeating it. Love you too much to argue. So thanks for that interaction, you guys. Thank you for helping me out with that. Love and Logic talks about, and Rita, I did say you won something, so I mark my words, follow up with me on that, and I have a big supply of some stuff from Love and Logic Institute. So in Love and Logic, we talk about 3 types of teachers. The first one is this idea of the helicopter squad, or the helicopter parent. And Jim McFay and Foster Klein, the creators of parenting and teaching with Love and Logic, back in 1977, coined this phrase. Now, we've seen kind of a development from a regular helicopter parent to more of the attack turbo style missile launching model. I've even had people send me like memes about helicopter. It's more like snowplow parent. And the whole point of, and they do it out of love, right? Helicopter parents do things out of love, and it's probably they're just continuing a cycle of what they learn and how they were raised or how they were taught, and they become a rescue squad. Earlier, I kind of alluded to the fact when Bree left her lunch, right? See, the road to wisdom is paved with mistakes when the costs are small. Not life-changing events, but thousands, hundreds and thousands of mistakes when the costs are tiny. Right? So when we can allow kids to make mistakes, we keep that cycle of that wisdom. We're developing wisdom in their brain. Helicopter teachers and parents don't allow that to happen as much. And again, they do it out of love, but what happens is that the helicopter then is exhausted at the end of the day because they're doing all the what? Work, thinking. And they send the message to the child, you can't do it, or you're not capable. And that's a scary message to send to a kid. I'm 44, how old am I? 44. My brother's a police officer on campus. And he's like, we have a batch of kids coming to us that are just unskilled at a lot of things. And the main thing that my brother talks about is they don't know how to solve problems and get themselves out of situations, and that can be not a small mistake, right? Now that becomes a life-changing mistake. It could be a life-ending mistake, and so wise parents don't become helicopter parents. So, and we have drill sergeant parents. I was raised with one of each of these, and I learned how to play them against each other, and that's not a good skill to teach a young boy. But drill sergeants, they do a lot of barking and commanding. And you have this handout as well, so you can refer to this later if you want for a little more detail. But, they do a lot of yelling and commanding, and there's a lot of fear involved with drill sergeant parents. They don't want kids to make mistakes or get hurt, and that all comes from a love-based perspective too. But sadly, the same message is delivered. Sweetie, you can't do it, but don't worry. I'll tell you what to do, when to do it, how to do it. If we think of the word micromanaging, it kind of falls in this concept of being a drill sergeant. Love and Logic talks about becoming a consultant parent, providing guidance. If I were to add another word there, it would be questions. I know when I'm really hitting on all cylinders, whether I'm teaching or coaching or parenting or being a husband even, and yes, I said it. I don't know if I should, but Love and Logic works on spouses. Keep that in mind, Jamie. Just kidding. And so being a consultant, when I'm hitting on all cylinders, I'm asking tons of questions. It could be simple things like, what are you going to do next? I did this yesterday. I said, sweetie, would you walk back into the kitchen? Just tell me what you notice. Would you walk into the kitchen? ? And then what do you notice ? And it was like, I noticed some stuff I need to take care of, but I can't now. I'll come back as soon as I'm done with my next Zoom. Great. Now we have a plan. I can deal with that, right? I can work with that. So I'm blessed to be able to stay home, and I'm down in my basement in my little compound with my little flyer here with my little logo, and just kind of amazed, humbled, I guess, that I get to work with you all, and I hope our paths cross and we can actually have a conversation someday soon. Jim Fay, again, I mentioned him earlier, one of the creators of Love and Logic, says this almost at every conference that I've seen him speak at. He said, consequences will do the teaching. Empathy will lock in the learning. And I have a little note for myself out there, the lost boots. I remember Grace was in second grade, Mrs. Anderson's class. And she went to school. I'll try to make this really short. She went to school as Wednesday. She went to school as wintertime. She had boots on, snow pants, coat, hat, gloves, right? She's all ready to go. See, we're kind of those crazy parents, and we say things like, hey girls, this is back in September, maybe October. Girls, we're gonna go to Farm and Fleet, or we're gonna go to the store, and we're gonna buy mittens and hats and boots. And we just need you to know that we will buy and pay for what we can afford, and we'll pay for the first pair of boots. We'll pay for the first hat. We'll pay for the first set of mittens, which implies what? Right. It implies that if they lose it, then they'll have to take care of buying or purchasing or working off the money to take care of that. And I sent Grace to school that day, and it was a Wednesday, and she was all ready to learn. And she came home, and Bree is just a toddler at that point, and she comes zipping around the side of the bus, and she's all dressed except now she has shoes on. And I thought, what the heck? And I was just waiting for her to come across the road and be like, Dad, I lost my boots, and whine and complain, and she didn't. Partly because my kids know that whining and complaining will absolutely fall on deaf ears. Doesn't work. It's not currency in our house, so it's not a thing, which is so limits the stress. And she's like, hey Dad, gave me a hug, and then off she went. And I'm like, huh? And I looked at Bree, and she's like, huh? And I thought, oh, and I wanted to march in there and be like, where are your boots? I sent you, you had boots on, da, 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 da. And I didn't. I was on my game that day, and I just went back into the kitchen, and I was getting dinner started. And then finally I hear, Dad, how much do boots cost? And I'm like, oh, this is good. This is good. And I yelled down from the top of the steps. I'm like, $1,000. She's like, what? And I'm like, no, well, it kind of depends. And she's like, well, I have money. And I'm like, all right, well, let's. And she started counting money, and I continued to do, because see, I knew if I stood there, I'd talk too much and I'd screw up the situation. She was already learning about the consequence. I was making sure that I was going to lock it in with empathy. So she yelled back up, Dad, how many quarters are in $1 again? I'm like, 4 quarters. Oh, sweetie, this stinks. Tell me what happened. She's like, Dad, I lost my boots. I'm like, oh, honey, so hard to hear you. That must be frustrating, losing your boots, right? See, when we use empathy, we keep them in thinking mode. Right? If I were to slip into a lecture or make a mistake and start yelling at her, I drive that child into fight or flight response. And kids don't learn in the lower brainstem part of the brain of the nervous system. They learn up here where they can, right and left hemispheres can communicate. So she's like, Dad, all right, I think I have enough money. Let's go. I'm like, oh, honey, no, I really wanted to lock in this learning moment. I said, sweetie, I'm busy tonight, and Mom's working late, and I have a class, and da, da, da. It can't be tonight. And she looked at me like, oh my gosh, this isn't good. I said, sweetie, what's the big deal? She's like, well, they won't let us off the sidewalk unless we have boots. And all my friends were making snowmen, and it had just snowed. I'm like, oh, right. I locked it in with more empathy. Oh, honey, that stinks. I don't know what we're going to do, but maybe tomorrow. And I just tried to bite my lip, and I walked away. Well, she went to school, and she had a plan. She's going to look in the lost and found. I said, sweetie, if anyone can figure this out, it's you. See, Love and Logic sends a lot of these messages of hope. A lot of these hope-giving messages like, you can figure this out. You're 8 years old. You can solve this problem. And she had a plan. She was going to talk to her teacher and then check the lost and found. Well, she came off the bus, and guess what was on her feet? Shoes. Couldn't find her boots. I'm like, oh, sweetie, what happened? She's like, I had to watch my friends play, and they're not anywhere. They're gone. They're just lost. Oh, honey, what do you want to hear? And then I took her through the problem-solving kind of 5-step process. And we're not going to get to it today. We cover that in class 5 of the main class. I keep pointing over here. I'm pointing to this. This is kind of the curriculum that we follow. But anyway, she had a plan that she's going to ask some other people and this and that. So finally, Friday rolls around, right? So Wednesday to Friday, which is an eternity. So she's watching her friends play recess or do recess from the sidewalk. And oh, by the way, I sent an email to all the teachers and said, hey, having a little love and logic moment, a little learning session here. Please do not bail Grace out, right? She'll be okay. And they sent back great supportive emails. And I remember her main teacher just sent me a big blue thumbs up. And she came home on Friday, and she's hardly around the corner of the bus, and she's like, Daddy, and she's pointing at her feet. She's like, I got my boots. And I'm like, all right. And Brianna, her little sister's like, yay. And I'm like, oh, you got your boots. What happened? She's like, you know, Thomas. I said, yeah, Thomas. He's what? Well, she's like, yeah. I'm like, what? I don't know. What do you mean? Well, Thomas, he was sick. I'm like, well, I'm not making and I wasn't. I'm like, she's like, Thomas has a hook next to mine, and he left sick on Wednesday, and that's when he accidentally put my boots on. And by the way, he was like puking sick, so we should spray these. And she was so full of just positive and pride about solving her own problems. She solved it. Right? She solved it. And we know one of the best ways to build self-esteem in young people is to not bail them out, but to let them and guide them and consult with them to own and solve their own problems. I would say there's no sticker, scratch and stiff snicker, pencil, way to go, high five, big enough to build self-esteem like problem solving can. So we had a little celebration that night, and she got to save her money. And to date, I think that's the last time she's lost something, because the road to wisdom, again, is paved with mistakes when the costs are small. Wow, I said I'd make that story short, not so short. It's already after 12. So let's just look at some strategies that we cover when we really dive into this stuff. There's a technique called the delayed consequence. We've already mentioned this concept. It's not even a strategy. It's more of a principle, really, of empathy. We will look at enforceable statements some more. We already looked at some of those on the Turn Your Words to Gold. Arguments, do this for me. Just kick back, relax for a second. And I want you to think. Think about this question. Raise your hand if you've ever argued with a child. Anyone? I think really the question, thanks Rita. She raised her hand, that's great. Oh goodness. All right, let it rip. We all have, right? We've all argued with kids, and I have too. And I try, and I know better, and I teach this stuff, and I still totally screw up. So we'll learn how to stop arguments today. We'll talk about going brain dead. We'll learn about a technique called the energy drain, or sometimes it's called the generic consequence. That's a skill we learn in the second class. See, the very first class, we spend an hour and 45 minutes talking about how to never argue with kids again and how to go brain dead. And that's really one of the foundational components of Love and Logic. I kind of gave you an example briefly about how to guide kids to solve their own problems, but there is a 5-step approach, pretty simple. It takes practice, though. All of this takes practice, because most of us weren't raised with Love and Logic. So it hasn't been modeled, right? It hasn't been modeled for us. So it takes practice, and it takes a lot of patience, and it takes a lot of grace and forgiveness for screwing up. And we talk about that in class as well. The concept of choices, or choice theory, I think that goes way back to like Skinner. Is that the researcher on that one? Anyone out there know that? I think that's Skinner's stuff. And giving choices is all about giving up power and control when we don't really need it. It's kind of like, I think of it as a bank account. We put a lot of deposits. We might talk about that today. And this power of relationships, how do we build non-manipulative, non-coercive, genuine, authentic, bulletproof relationships with kids? And that's, if the umbrella is language shapes reality, a foundational component, a big foundational component, is the concept and the power of relationships. Let's talk about choices a little bit. Before I kind of switch gears here, any questions coming up? How are we doing? Feeling okay? I don't see any open questions here. Someone asked where the handouts are. It looked like they got emailed. All right, so we're good. You answered that. Y'all are good. I'm learning about this stuff as we go. Corinne, thank you for the comment there. Appreciate that. She's thinking there's some good information in here. Well, that makes me feel good. It's hard when I don't get any real feedback, you know. At least when I do live audiences, if people kind of give me the "what are you talking about," I know to either change topics or reteach something. The other thing is, hold on a second. I forgot to close out this, and that's what you hear probably dinging. All right, so let's talk about choices with limits. 2 rules. 1, you need to be okay with either option. Do you want to put on your boots first or put on your hat first? I don't care. Just, those are the choices with really little kids. Do you want to do your jobs first, contributions or chores first, or do you want to do your homework first? I don't care. But they both need to get done. So you have to be okay with either option, and then we give 2 options, so that those first 2 bullets go together. And then here's the second rule: if they can't decide for them. So you got to give them 1 or 2 options. You give them 2 options. You don't need more than 2, especially if they're young. You have to be okay with either option, and then if they can't decide in a short amount of time, just a few moments, then decide for them. You know, if they're new to making choices, give them a little more leeway. But 5 seconds, man. I used to say give them 10 seconds, but aren't kids? They have like an internal clock, right? They can wait 9.9 seconds. In fact, that happened with me. I forgot about this with one of my kids, and I was working on choices, but I forgot all about the second rule. If they just can't decide for them, or maybe I didn't know about it yet. And so I'm working on choices, and it was breakfast, and I'm like, this is the day. I'm going to give up some power and control. And Grace was about 2.5, maybe 3. I said, Grace, it's breakfast time. All right, and we're excited. I said, do you want Frosted Mini Wheats, or would you like Raisin Bran? And she looked at me, and I was down on the floor with the 2 boxes, right, kneeling. And she looked at it and was like, I remember she had a little dress on, and she spun around. She's like, and she's like pointed to the fridge, and she's like, cheese. I'm like, oh, that's not good. So finally she chose something. And then I said, I had all of these planned. I'm like, do you want the blue bowl or the pink bowl? Same thing. And this went on and went on and went on. And I'm like, this is not working. Choices are supposed to help speed things up. So I went back and did some reading, and I realized the second rule. If they can't decide for them. Next morning, it might have even been lunch, I don't recall. Sweetie, do you want Frosted Mini Wheats or Raisin Bran? And she didn't think anything changed, right? There was no neurons in her head that thought, Dad might be different today, right? Because and then she's like, and finally I'm like, oh, looks like Raisin Bran. And she's like, oh, I wanted Frosted Mini Wheats. And I'm like, oh, well. And I used a little empathy. And I said, do you want the pink bowl or the blue bowl? She's like, but I wanted Frosted Mini Wheats. And I'm like, oh, and that tells me what? She can't decide. So I decide for her. Oh, looks like the blue bowl. She's like, no, I wanted the pink bowl. And I'm like, oh, so sad not to decide. Do you want the big spoon or the little spoon? But I wanted the pink bowl. Huh? Can't decide. So who decides for her? I do. Looks like the big spoon. And she's like, no. Right. I don't even know if she ate breakfast that day. But thankfully I had a good night's sleep, and I just kind of shrugged it off. And I thought, well, we'll try again at lunch. And it was a little bit of struggle, but something happened overnight. And that next morning, I'm like, Grace, it's breakfast time. She's like, Frosted Mini Wheats, pink bowl, little spoon, or whatever it was. And she realized Dad's different. Dad's different. If I don't decide in a short amount of time, Dad chooses for me, and I want to be in control of my life, right? So we give choices, right? We give up power and control when we don't need it. I like using the phrase, would you rather? Would you rather this or this? Or what works best for you, this or this. And you can do choice. Do you want the lights on or the lights off? Do you want to read the book? You can have fun with it from the front or the back. Dad, oh, well, do you want to put on your socks first or your shoes first? Dad, oh, well, what? You have to put on socks first. I think the first few years of life, they just kind of thought, Dad's not so bright at this. I best learn how to do this because I'm going to end up like that one day, one of my kids ended up going to Farm and Fleet. See, we had a lot of Love and Logic experiments, but one of them went to Farm and Fleet with a hat, underwear, and 2 socks on. And that was it. I'll share that story with you some other time, but it ended up working out good. But it was a Love and Logic experiment about how to get out of the door on time, right? It seems like mealtime, bedtime, nap time, out of the door on time, anything that ends with the word time, it seems like those are opportunities where the best of us can just struggle, right? And because a lot of us need practice in turning our words, our language into enforceable statements. So let's keep plugging along here. Empathy, I've talked about this, but we advise empathy over anger. This skill's crucial to be effective with all of these techniques. Empathy opens the heart and the mind to learning. Anger and frustration closes that door. Let me say that again, a little soundbite for you. Empathy opens the heart and the mind for learning. Anger and frustration, lectures, warnings, bribes, close that door. So we talk about finding your phrase, and we do this in class too. I started out with, when I started teaching out west, as Judy read, Judy, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I'm like, oh, we have to get going here. I need to shorten that thing up. I don't even remember sending it to you, but I must have. I started with this one. This is such a bummer. But Mr. Peterson, I don't have my homework. Oh, that's a bummer. But my parents don't believe in school. Oh, that's a bummer, right? So I started out with that, and then I kind of morphed into. Actually, I morphed into the. Let's see, where is it? This is so sad. This is so sad, especially when my kids were little. Now I just use the empathetic groan. Really, it's like, oh. Dad, I totally forgot to tell you. I didn't put it on the calendar, but I have show choir rehearsal tonight. Oh. But when are we gonna go? Oh, right. So empathy opens the heart and the mind to learning. Let's listen to someone else talk here.
What Love and
Do we
Logic
have this video
teaches.
up? Are we good?
What Love and Logic teaches is that we always lock in that strong dose of empathy or sadness for the kid before we deliver the bad news. Lock in that empathy, then the consequence. Lock in that empathy, then ask the kid, what do you think you're going to do, right? So when that little kid came off the playground and said, somebody lost my coat, oh, that teacher was thinking, yes, I get a chance to use my new skills. And she said, oh no, that's horrible. You got to feel horrible about that. He was shocked. He'd never had anybody do that. He looked at her. What? And then she asked, what do you think you're going to do? And his response, of course, was, I'm doing something. I'm telling. And she said, oh, would you like some ideas? What? Some kids decide to go out and look. No, I already looked for it. It's not out there. Somebody stole it. Oh, no. Well, some kids decide that they're going to go down to the oh, I already talked to her. She doesn't care. Secretary's just mean. Well, some kids decide that they're going to talk to the janitor. He won't be able to help me. Well, and this was hard for her. Good luck. Isn't that hard to do with kids? And what's the message when you say good luck? It is your problem to solve. And by the way, what's the other message? You're capable. You can do this. What was she experimenting with? Love and Logic teaches 5 steps for helping kids own and solve their problems.
And we alluded to that a little bit, and that's Dr. Charles Fay from the Love and Logic Institute. All right. Some other language. If you're like me, I needed the words. That's why I really got into Love and Logic. One, because my life was threatened as a first-year teacher. And two, when you read it, it's not just philosophy. You know, I have a lot of books here that people are asking to borrow, but it's not just research and philosophy, but it gives you just enough, and then it gives you some examples. Teacher A does it this way. Teacher B might do it this way. Parent A, parent B, and see, you can make it fit. You can make it fit your personality. If you're kind of a dramatic person, we can be a little more dramatic with it. If you're kind of just business-like, you can be business-like, but the principles stay the same. So I wanted to just some examples that I remember saying a lot when the kids were younger. I give treats to kids when I know that they take good care of their teeth. I'd be happy to put in a movie when your room is picked up. Those are enforceable. I drive kids to their friend's house when I feel respected around here. Kind of a general one, right? I'd be happy to listen when your voice is calm. But Dad, I was always going to make a shirt, right, that said "But Dad" on the back, right? Solving arguments one child at a time. But Dad. I'd be happy to listen when your voice is calm. Oh, I think I said that. Feel free to eat with us when you are respectful. Oh, that one just came up. We used that one with Bree. Bree was horsing around when she was little, 3 or 4 or 5. Maybe she was even older than that, because must have been 7 or 8. And she just talked about this at dinner the other night. Dad, remember I had a couple nights in a row when I had to eat in my room by myself? I said, yeah, I remember something about that. I said, how did that turn out? She's like, well, I was screwing around and thought it'd be funny, but it wasn't worth it. Right? So it wasn't worth it. So logical consequences. Feel free to eat with us when you can be respectful. Let's listen again.
I'd like you to yell out, gold. Let's practice that. Gold. If my word is gold. And that means that I'm setting a firm limit, and I'm actually teaching you to listen to every single word I say. Now, I'm going to have you yell out, garbage. Let's practice that one. Garbage. If my word is garbage, and you're just going to come to ignore every single thing I say. And isn't it true that we are either training our kids to listen very closely to us or to ignore everything we say each and every day? So here we go. I'm going to set some limits with you. Quit yelling, for crying out loud. Garbage. Oh, but it felt so good. Or how about this one? I listen to calm voices. Or how about this one? Quit interrupting each other. How am I going to figure out who started, what's going on, if everybody talks at the same time? Garbage. Or how about this? I listen to one person at a time. Gold. I am sick and tired of having to listen to this in the back seat. You do not want me to turn this car around. Now, you cut it out back there. I'm going to have an accident if you keep doing this. Hey guys, I drive when it's quiet and it's safe. Gold. Or how about this one? This is great. What? Oh, I charge $2 a minute to listen to that sort of stuff in the car. Gold. What's the common thread here? Powerful people, successful people, great parents, they don't set limits by bossing people around, do they? No, they set limits by describing what they're going to do and what they're going to allow. We never tell a kid what to do. See, there's no better way than to start a fight with a strong-willed kid than to say something like this: stop it. Or how many of you have ever said this: hurry up, and had to watch the kid and compare them to a stationary object just to see if they were moving?
Common theme when we do these classes is, we learn best when we giggle, right? We learn best when we're having fun. And hopefully you've heard the word experiment. We experiment. We don't say do this or else. We experiment, and like any good scientist, if they create an experiment and it doesn't go very well, they don't throw everything out. They tweak it, right? So we talk about love and logic experiments, and see, we learn things in small little bites, small little chunks, and we work on one thing at a time. I've had a lot of people ask me, well, could you do the full class in a weekend? Oh yeah, we could, and you'd probably pay me a lot, and it's like a government leadership retreat, but I say, you know, it's kind of like learning math in a weekend. One, you're not going to do it, and two, you're going to hate math. So I refrain from doing that, and try to keep things in small bites, and I think that's when we learn best, and we also learn best when we're with people we know. Part of creating that village. So arguments, right? You all raised your hand. Here's your line. I think I alluded to this one. I love you too much to argue. But Dad, I was just, you know, Mom would let me. I know, and I love you too much to argue. But you just had kids to be slaves. I love you too much to argue. I call those argumentative hand grenades. Like, kids are really good. If they learn that arguing works, they're like, oh, that one didn't work. Throw it up. Oh, geez, that one didn't work today. Weird. That one always works. I hate you. Ooh, will that get you sucked into an argument? So we just pick one phrase and we put them on sticky notes, right? I always have sticky notes ready to go, and sticky notes, and I have a phrase that I'm going to learn. Love you too much to argue. I mentioned that one. I'll be happy to listen to your concerns as soon as your voice is calm. When the kids were little, I listened to Big Girl Voice. I remember Bree came up, you know, they were like little angels downstairs playing in the toy room, playing blocks and Legos and dolls, and they have this whole scenario set up. So fun to listen to. And they're like little angels, little cherubs, just giggling and laughing, and then all of a sudden the tone changed. And then I heard the voices ramp up, and I heard, you need to stop it, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden I heard the footsteps come racing up the steps. Does that just send you into a little bit of a panic, right? We've all been there. And I hear, Dad, Tracy's being mean to me. I took a deep breath. I remember I was stirring tomatoes. It was September, harvest season, getting ready for canning, and stirring tomatoes. And I took a deep breath, and I said, and I turned around and I got down to her level, and I said, oh, and I listened to Big Girl Voices, and she whipped right around. And I saw her kind of wipe her face, excuse me. I saw her wipe her face. And I don't think this happened. I think that this is a dramatization, but it felt like this. She turned around and she goes, Father, whilst you have the energy to go down and punish your oldest child, she's bothering me. That's how it felt. I'm sure that wasn't it, but she knew from an early on. And my students know, and my athletes know, I'll listen to calm voices, but I'm not going to argue with you. No one wins an argument. No one wins in a power struggle, right? So we're going to learn how to stay out of those and not get sucked into them if kids try. All right, wrapping things up. Let's do this. Oh, well, we're doing pretty good. We're right on time here. Here's what I've noticed. Over time, and hopefully you've learned some nuggets here. Over time, as you become practiced in love and logic, you don't do it, right? I have a lot of people say, oh, did you love and logic me? They turn it into a verb. And I'm like, I don't know. What did I say? I don't even remember. Because it just becomes how you think and interpret and work with people. I've noticed that keeping a good sense of humor really, really helps. Talking about school, I noticed that love and logic teachers crave Mondays. And actually I have a workshop for teachers called Learning to Crave Mondays Again, because there's some challenges, and especially now. I noticed that love and logic parents start to look forward to rocky times. I remember one time things are going too smooth for too long, and I took this this is terrible. I don't advise this probably, but there was a folder, you know, the bring home folder, one of the kids, I don't even recall, and I just kind of slid it under the microwave like by accident, and all of a sudden I hear, what it was right here. I put it here every night. I'm like, oh, maybe you forgot. She's like, Dad, I put it here every night because you won't go digging for it. And I open it up if you need. I know. I don't know. And so she's looking around. And then I kind of pulled it out a little bit. She looked at me. She's like, how could you? I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah, but Love and Logic parents look forward to some of those rocky times because, you know, we have some strategies and a set of principles. And I've noticed that a positive attitude about the profession of being a parent, right? The verb, and children and life in general is paramount for that authentic existence. My mission is really simple, y'all. I want to influence the development of the next generations of world-class citizens so that I can live my dream. And my dream is this, that my girls and ultimately all kids move in symphony with the adults and the peers in their lives, learning from all of the healthy and the poor choices while still fostering positive growth in their character, in their self-efficacy, and in their dignity. Wow, how'd we do? 12:30 on the nose. You can look for Parenting the Love and Logic Way. Find me on Facebook at The Parenting Professor. We're doing these, they gave me the green light at the Love and Logic Institute to do these online for sure through the end of December. We'll see what happens after that. I think they're watching things pretty closely. Things are going really, really well. Here's my contact info. We'll just leave that up. Judy, how do we do?
We're doing great, Chris. Thank you so much.
Oh,
Are there questions that anybody has? This is your time to get awesome advice and insight into your parenting.
I call this the stump the chump. or the yeah buts. Yeah, but you haven't met, you know, Sally. Poor Sally or Billy. No one's ever going to name their kid Sally or Billy anymore because they're always like, those are the names used for the bad kids in class. Any questions coming up? And I can hang out here for a little while too, or I don't know what you've done in the past. What a cool thing y'all are doing, Judy, here at the county level. How did this come about? Well, people are thinking here. Tell us how this whole webinar series for families, how did that process work out?
You know, this is with the La Crosse County Prevention Network, and we have a work group in marijuana and alcohol. And that work group just talked about what are ways that we can promote and help parents to prevent substance abuse and parenting and how to support parenting. Came from that discussion, and out of that discussion came you, because I saw you on XOW.
Yeah. I'll have to tell Dustin, because he's a parent too, Dustin Lukey, on the morning show, or Good Morning. Well, I forget what it's called, but he gets to come on, and then I always give him free parenting advice. So I think that's why I always joke with him. That's why you help me with my classes. But this next class, I'm teaming up with Winona Health, so they're sponsoring it, and what a great idea and tremendous foresight that they realize as part of their wellness program. If we can help our employees, our parents at home, they're going to be more productive at work, and they're going to be happier. They're going to be better, nicer to be around, and they're doing it. They're paying for the class for the people that want to take the class, and then they're also getting a wellness credit as part of their whatever their kind of hierarchy of wellness points. You know, and so they're basically getting paid to take the class. So how cool is that people are starting to realize helping parents be more effective and efficient? Not only does it feel good, not only is it better for our society, but I mean, if we want to really put on the business hat, it comes down to the dollar, and it's worth it.
Yeah, it truly is. I would like to point out that we do have on our website, you know, different ways to start conversations with kids about difficult topics, ways to discussion starters, and then how do you handle those tough conversations. They can go on the La Crosse County Prevention Network website and find those conversation starters, which are crucial. And I think, Chris, you set them up for how you respond to kids when they're in stress, helps them to come to you with questions. And oftentimes I say they happen in the car when I least am prepared for them to happen. But it's a great way to start those conversations. And it really starts with how we get to know our kids and build that relationship with them so that they do come to us when they're older.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And Judy, just talking with you, the 15 minutes before we came on to make sure technology worked, you taught me some things. And, I mentioned that trauma-informed care class, and I wrote down a couple of things that I'm going to bring up in class tonight. So you helped teach me today as well. So thank you so much. I don't see any questions coming in. Nikki, do you see anything? We feel okay about wrapping things up, or again, I can hang out, whatever you want to do.
Yep, I don't see anything right now.
Oh, she's speaking from the heavens, Nikki.
Yeah. So we don't see anything right now in the questions and comments, but you can all feel free to hang out for a while and continue the conversation if you'd like. I'm going to take just a quick moment to thank you, Chris, for sharing your knowledge, your time, your passion on how to facilitate healthy parenting. We really do appreciate you. You're an awesome resource in our community.
My pleasure.
I also want to thank everyone for being part of our Second Informed Families webinars. Please note that the upcoming webinars in the future, so we have Lisa McCormick will be talking about as a parent of a sex trafficked child. That'll be coming up next Wednesday. And then you can register again at the La Crosse County Prevention Network.org. So thank you very much, and please feel free to stay on the webinar if you want to continue to talk and get some of Chris's insight on how to parent your children with love and logic.
Sounds great. Yeah, I'll hang out here for a while.
So Chris, I was thinking one of the things that I remember about parenting is driving with my kids, and we would drive from Stoddard to La Crosse almost every day for some sort of lesson.
Sure.
And the kids screaming in the back seat. And finally I just said, I can't drive, because I truly couldn't drive without being so enmeshed in what was happening in that back seat. So I pulled over and said, when we're quiet, I can drive again.
Yeah.
And so we ended up an hour later driving home.
I had a mom, she planned for it. She had earplugs and a book. And she had her empathetic phrase, and they started ramping up in the back, and she's like, oh, this is such an energy drain. And that's a technique we didn't get to today, but she's like, oh, this is such an energy drain. I'll drive when everyone's using calm voices or something. And she pulled over and she put in her earplugs and she just started reading the book right in the middle, right on the shoulder of the road, found a safe spot. And then the kids had to put the energy back in her when they got home.
Yeah.
Right. So
I like that one.
Yeah. The energy drain's a good technique to use. And you can do it when kids are pretty small actually too. So maybe a question here. What's this? Chris, do you have an email you would be willing to share? Yeah, it's, should I type it? It was on, I had it on the screen, didn't I? Let's look at this. How about, try that again. Can I share again, you guys?
Yep.
All right, not that. New share, let's do a new share. And this one, right? I had to talk it through in my head. Anyway, it's Chris. Is it on this page? No, it's Chris at theparentingprofessor.com. Why is that like that? Here we go. Here we go. There it is. I just didn't click enough clickers. There we go. Chris at theparentingprofessor.com. Facebook, The Parenting Professor, or you can go to my webpage too. Probably need to update that a little bit, but you can see a calendar there as well. So things are starting to really come in. I was really nervous. This was kind of going to be a breakout year for me and traveling nationally and kind of, like I mentioned, I bought a car and just had the car for 2 weeks, and then COVID hit, and all of a sudden my really full calendar got really empty. So those are that's the information there. So schools are, I just got a call from a district in Denver. They want to host a class privately just for their school district. So that's a cool thing. And those are all ideas that we can bring to our own schools as well. I thought I saw a chat come up. Did I? Maybe not. Oh, there it is. I know we were mainly talking about children. I have a question that is more focused on the high school age. Sure. When your child has a bad relationship that they can't get themselves out of, how can you support them while also trying to point out that it is better for them to leave? Yeah. So here, that's a huge question. And I have some information actually I could send you on that, Aaron. Why don't you email me? And I have some handouts. Actually, I think I have a video too somewhere, but I'll send you some more detail on that, Aaron, if you're still listening. But in general, refrain from trying to control like hairstyles, who kids hang out with, clothing, music that they listen to, because those are just really good opportunities for kids to dig their heels in. And so we want to really focus our energy on creating that bulletproof relationships, right? Let me just reread it. They're in a tough or a bad relationship, right? Support, modeling what healthy relationships look like, right? Talking about what healthy relationships feel like. When I was in the classroom in the high school, I taught health education, and I spent a lot of time talking about loving relationships. Talking about infatuations, based on looks or appearance or infatuation. So I had a handout, is this love? Because that was pertinent to kids, right? To teens. And that was sophomore and juniors in high school. But I have some of that information, Aaron. I think I would, what else I have too is an audio book and a regular book called Parenting Teens with Love and Logic. They had a huge sale, and I bought a ton of. I'm a little nervous about it because I'm not a book salesman, but I have a ton of resources, and it's taken up a lot of my bank account. But I got things at like 40% off, so I can totally pass those savings on to you. I might have rounded up to the next dollar or something, so that I don't have to keep change on me. But there's a book called Parenting Teens with Love and Logic. It's green, and I also have the audio version. So if you're interested in that, that's a good resource as well. Anything else? CCS program, remind me what that is. I think I have. The question was, have you ever worked with the county CCS program, mental health? I know that oftentimes they share my flyers for class. Judy, who would that be? Is that you that does that?
No. And actually, Christine, you probably know better than I do. Who is that? Is it
Chrissy?
Can we unmute Christine? I bet you.
I think I'm unmuted now.
Oh, there you are, Christine. What's shaking? What do you got?
Well, I just work with youth and families in the CCS and waiver program.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so many of our parents get stuck in those arguments and just have a hard time know what direction to go.
Mm-hmm.
And they also have a hard time, I think, in large group trainings to admit that their parenting style might not be the best. So I just didn't know if you've ever contracted with the county CCS program or the county to meet one-on-one with families to provide that education.
Yeah, so there's always discussion, and people from the wellness side of the county, I don't know all the hierarchy of departments, from the legal side of, there's always talk, and then when we were doing it face-to-face, it came down to logistics, childcare, where are we going to host it, things like that. Now that we're doing it online, they've never allowed facilitators to hold these classes in a virtual format for a lot of reasons that make a lot of sense. But they gave me the green light. I think they trust what we're doing up here in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa. And this would be a tremendous format to just be a fly on the wall, really, and listen to the discussion, watch the video clips, we read about it, we do a little exercise about it. The classes are pretty fun, interactive. This next group, is people all over the nation, and they can totally stay with their video and audio off if they wanted to, muted. In fact, I have a couple people in South Dakota. They don't want to be seen. They don't really care to be heard, but they work with foster families, and they chat with me afterwards, one-on-one, and we have good dialogue and conversation. So maybe this is a good time or a good catalyst to start that path for them. What do you think of that, Christy?
Well, so I am a lonely social worker, so I have already emailed management to see if there's a possibility to pursue or to kind of bump it to the next level.
Sure.
Yeah, I have many families that I think would benefit, and we do so much with a trauma-informed care, trauma-informed agency, circle of security. What we know now is completely different than where we were at 6 months or even a year ago. But I think that the Love and Logic would be a really good addition to kind of all those different areas. So yeah, I already emailed management.
This is the new class. It's the trauma-informed care version of Love and Logic. It's called Adults Supporting Youth with Challenging Pasts. And actually, we have class tonight. I mean, if you wanted to, I can just let you sit in tonight so you get a flavor of it.
Well, I appreciate the offer. But yeah, I think there's it's another area I think we need to really explore and bring on board as we help parents and help youth in their journey, in their path. And
I agree.
So
Yep, let me know. I know a guy that would love to help.
well, thank you. It was so nice to listen to, and I really enjoyed it. And even for personally, I always have to take those deep breaths with my own kids. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks for making our class a little better by participating. Anything else? See, the girls love it. They love this online version, or because I'm the chef in the Peterson household. I love to cook, and when I have classes, or now that they're even online, that means that it's usually pizza night or something really easy, because mom works hard and late, and she'd prefer to do dishes, so we're the perfect team. But so they're excited, like, class tonight, Dad? I'm like, yep, pizza. They're like, yes. So there's nothing else.
Yep, I don't see any other questions or any comments in the chat line or on the Q&A.
If anything comes
Last
up,
call, guys.
yep, if anything comes up, shoot me an email, find me on Facebook. Every day, Judy, I hear someone say, thanks for getting back to me so quickly. I pride myself in being available. With phones and such. I remember taking some parents, I should use this phrase carefully, but kind of talked them off the ledge, so to speak. They were very upset, and we did it, and they didn't know, but I was fishing with my buddy, and so I try to be really available, because my turn, because when we're in the heat of the moment and we have the courage to reach out for help, I don't want to have you wait more than a few moments, right? So my turnaround time on Facebook is under 10 minutes, unless it's like critical. So my emails, I have to stay on top of it, because my email box will fill up. Like right now, just since we've started, I have 32 emails. So we'll have to filter all those. And so it's just part of my job. It's not even a job, just blessed. Ridiculous that people listen to what I have to say. It's awesome. Oh, hey, Q&A. Thank you so much. You're welcome. Thanks for being here.
Okay, it looks like that's it, Chris.
Awesome. Thanks again. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much. And I hope everybody does reach out and checks you out on your Facebook, and your email. Will continue to promote all the great stuff that you're doing as well. We appreciate what you do for our community and the support you offer families.
Thank you. All right, signing off. Take care, everyone.
Have a great day.
Yep.
Thank you all. Okay, so How do we have to stop the recording?
Any administrative stuff, Judy? We good?
Yeah, I'm just gonna stop recordings.
I didn't realize that was going out live on Facebook.
There we go. And I think I stopped. You didn't realize what?
Did I hear you say it was going out on Facebook Live?
It was.
I didn't know that.